So when you first got, I'd like to know first off, how'd you first get the gig to be the voice of the Whalers?
Well, I was doing college hockey at the University of Wisconsin from 1975 to 79. And in the year before the Whalers joined the NHL, I got a phone call from them. They were still in the World Hockey Association. And they kind of offered me the job at that time. And I basically told them no because I had a very good job doing Big Ten sports. And then a year later, when they joined the NHL, they actually called me back again. And it was kind of an interesting scenario because I guess they were interested in me. And when I told them no, I thought I had blown the opportunity because in June of 1979, they joined the NHL. They merged with those four WHA teams, Winnipeg, Quebec, Edmonton, and Hartford, all came into the NHL. And I told my wife, I guess I blew that opportunity. But then in August of 79, they called me back, and the rest is history. I started there from day one in the NHL and enjoyed every minute of it until April 13th, 1997 came along.
Tell me what that day was like for you, because I can imagine it was pretty emotional for being the last time that that game was going to be played up here.
Yeah, it was very, very surrealistic. I mean, it was a very tumultuous time because a couple of weeks earlier, we had gotten word that the state of Connecticut and Whalers ownership at the time, Peter Karmanos, could not come to an agreement on building a new building. And so that was going to be the end of it. And that if they couldn't build a new facility, it was going to be economically unfeasible. Mr. Karmanos thought to keep the team in Hartford. So we kind of knew actually at the end of March that things weren't going very well. And it was actually announced on March the 26th that year that the team would be leaving. So everybody kind of had, basically 2.5 weeks to know that the end was there on April 18th. It was a very emotional time, to answer your question. I remember it was a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the last game of the year. The captain was Kevin Dineen, and fittingly, he scored the final goal, a game-winning goal in a 2-1 win against the Lightning that day. But the tears started flowing from the seats and certainly in the broadcast booth as well. And it was just at that time, a very terrible day because you've got to realize that we didn't know where we were moving at the time. Nobody knew anything about Raleigh, North Carolina. There were rumors about the team moving to Columbus, Ohio, or maybe even Minneapolis, St. Paul area. But when we found out it was going to be Raleigh several weeks later, that even made it more surrealistic because hockey in Raleigh, North Carolina didn't seem to fit. It seemed like ACC basketball territory, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. I know throughout the years, especially since you were also the initial voice of the Hurricanes when they moved, that people would still ask you about those Whaler days. What sticks out the most to you?
About the Whaler memories?
Yes.
Yeah, Whaler memories were very simple. I mean, the team built to they had a very tough, a good start the first season, 79-80. They made the playoffs that year, but then were quickly eliminated by Montreal. But my biggest memory was the 1986 playoffs, and especially Game 7 in Montreal, where the Whalers were at their zenith at that time. Had the Canadians on the ropes at the time, and played a very solid 7-game series, and then lost Game 7 in Montreal in overtime, 2-1. And had they won that game, I think they would have gone a long way in the playoffs because fans will recall the Canadians won the Stanley Cup that year. They beat Calgary. So that team could have been the Hartford Whalers instead of the Montreal Canadiens going all the way through the Eastern Conference. It could have been the Hartford Whalers taking on the Calgary Flames that year. We certainly have wishful thoughts on that, but that team was loaded really with a lot of solid talent, a lot of talent that has now become coaches and general managers in the NHL today, whether it's Ronnie Francis or Dean Evison or Dave Tippett or Ulf Samuelsson or Kevin Dineen. All of these guys are still in the game today in one capacity or another, and that's just scratching the surface. I mean, most of those guys have gone on to have wonderful careers in hockey management today. So it was a very special team. That 86-87 team was a good one as well. But the 86 playoffs, going 2 rounds, and then having Hartford throw a parade for the team was certainly extraordinary. Let's put it that way.
That's well said. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you want to share, or anything that just comes to mind in general?
Well, I really appreciate you doing this because, number one, I can't believe it's been 25 years already. It just goes to show you that that the math makes that mean that I was 45 when that happened. So that's one of the things that kind of basically surprised me is that how much time and how time has flown. But I think the other memory, the biggest thing I take away is something that happens each and every year, thanks to the Hartford Yard Goats, the AA baseball team there. And that is that they honor the team by having a Whalers weekend. And I'm very flattered to be part of that. And I think that's one of the things that makes me, that still gives me quite an attachment to the area, because we still have friends there, obviously, but time's gone by. But the fans have not forgotten the team, and it's gone to another generation. That's what is very surprising to me and very heartwarming to me, is that you have people that are now in their 40s and 50s who were basically in their 20s at that time, who now have kids, and they tell them about the lore of having a professional hockey team in town, an NHL team in town, and what it meant to them. And every time I come back in July, it always warms my heart to see the fans and see the fact, and their memories are incredible. So I mean, that to me is just as exciting for me as the team having spent 18 years there, and a wonderful 18 years in Hartford in the National Hockey League.